Right, good morning everyone and welcome to the Lincolnshire County Council Planning Regulation Committee. It's the 13th of May 2024, 10:30 a.m. according to Apple time anyway. I'm Councillor Ian Fleetwood, the chairman. To my immediate right I've got Councillor Charlotte Vernon, who is vice chairman. In front of us we've got various officers and we are going to deal with the business in front of us today. Fire alarms have all previously been conducted this morning, so if you hear an alarm, please exit the building to the two doors to the rear of me, congregate in front of the building so we can do a head count. If anybody needs it, there's water at the rear of the room. Otherwise, I think that's fairly straightforward. Item 1 is apologies replacement members.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Hassan, and Councillor Murray has also advised that he may be late.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of members' interests. Obviously, you can declare now or at any point during the meeting should you wish. Item 3 is minutes of the previous meeting held of the Planning and Regulation Committee, 15th of April, previously circulated. I'm quite happy to move them. Seconded by Councillor Skinner. I will check. All in favour, please show, of course, those people that were here. And I think that's fairly good. Yes, everyone agrees. No other comments. So I'll sign those off in a moment. Item 3.1 is notes of the site visit held on the 9th of May 2024, which have been circulated. There is one very small amendment on this, in that those present, Vice Chairman Councillor Vernon didn't make it to that meeting, so I think that shouldn't be as present, probably down to apologies.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you're happy with those, I'll sign those off as well. I'm going to propose that. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ashton.
And my apologies, yeah.
Okay.
I apologise.
Right.
But I'm in here with the meeting.
Right, so your apologies were recorded to the committee clerk prior to the meeting in all three instances? Yes, yes.
Me too.
Right, okay. We'll accept those then. Okay, move you on then to item 4, traffic items, 4.1, Bourne Meadowgate, proposed waiting restrictions. Move you over to Jan. Good morning, Jan. Nice to see you.
Morning, good to see you too. So the first report we have today is for Meadowgate in Bourne. Next slide, please. Thank you. So there are issues with congestion on Meadowgate currently because of parked vehicles and two-way traffic flow. It runs adjacent to the A15 North Street, so occasionally when that gets busy, traffic tends to filter through Meadowgate. We were initially asked to consider a one-way system through here, but the impact on residents would be high. At this stage, we agreed with the local member that we would install some additional waiting restrictions to try and mitigate the issues. So we're proposing some additional waiting restrictions at the northern end to facilitate traffic flow in and out of the junction with Harrington Street, and also further restrictions at the south on the bend and at a junction to facilitate traffic flow here. We've had one objection, and the resident has objected based on displacement of parking for residents and has asked for a permit scheme. A permit scheme does not form part of these proposals, as we've not had a formal request for it, but our officer's view is that these measures will improve matters for traffic negotiating through this area, and the recommendation is therefore that the objection is overruled. Thank you.
So I'm going to look, Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is in my division. I'd first and foremost like to thank Gian and the team for the work that they have done. She has aforementioned that it is congested. It is an area that the Town Council made a request for us to look at possibly making it one way and indeed making it one way the other way on, coming from coming in from where Tesco's petrol station is and that way. They did do the work both ways, owing to the sensitivity of this particular road, which is really congested. And it was thought that this wouldn't be appropriate, but the only way that they could help us was to make some further parking restrictions, which is what has been proposed here. I, along with Sue Woolley, both confirm that this is the best alternatives that we can come out with, and have no qualms in proposing it if that's in order. Thank you.
Vice Chairman?
Sorry, microphone. I too know this area really well and live locally, and I'm happy to support Councillor Reid's proposal by seconding it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton?
Nothing further to add. I think it's a really good idea and very, very, very definitely needed.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further speakers, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour, please show now. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move to 4.2 then, which is to Woodhall Spa, King George Avenue and Coronation Road.
Thank you.
For the sake of those watching online or listening online, we've got Monday morning technology ongoing, but I'm sure the presentation will be with us soon. I suppose it might be worth saying, Jan, is there anything different to the presentation than the Appendix A and Appendix B we've got in the pack?
Only some photographs. So,
Oh, there are some photographs,
yeah.
okay.
Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, carry on, please.
Thank you. Two-way traffic currently uses Coronation Road and King George Avenue, and this damages the integrity of the carriageway surface, and there are many resident pedestrians using the area, and there are concerns about the safety with two-way traffic flow going through here. So currently the traffic can come in from Stixwold Road to the west. Next slide please, and the next slide, thank you. So there's just some photographs showing the damage to the carriageway. Next slide please. So currently traffic comes in from the west via Stixwold Road, or it comes in via Spa Road to the south. We're proposing a one-way traffic order along Coronation Road and King George Avenue. This will reduce the damage to the carriageway. It'll also restrict access into the area to Spa Road, and leaving the area you will have to come out on Stixwold Road. Now, we've had several objections to this scheme, concerns about the stopping of traffic coming in on Stixwold will direct more traffic into the village centre, resulting in congestion. There's also concerns that Spa Road is also narrow, and there will be inconvenience to residents by the additional traffic through here. And also there are concerns about pedestrian safety. Should a one-way be introduced, it can speed traffic flows up. We've carried out a traffic survey on traffic flows through the area, and this demonstrates that 2/3 of traffic is using Spa Road at under the current conditions, both to access and leave the area. So we believe that the closure of Stixwold Road for an entry will not increase traffic flows to a high degree within the centre of the village. A scheme to resurface these roads is being developed, and the decision of this committee on this matter will inform us as to what scheme we put forward. Should a one-way be approved, then we will have space within the highway to introduce footway provision for pedestrians as well as the one-way traffic flow. It's therefore recommended that the objections are overruled so that we can proceed with this scheme. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
Very happy to support and propose this one, Mr. Chairman. Anyone who's familiar with Woodhall, if you've used that route to either access the Kinema or the Dower House or any of those places through there, you sometimes get a bit of a surprise when you meet a car coming the opposite way through the woods, and if this solves that, then it's a good thing. I can't see it being a massive inconvenience for many people. I can't see it really increasing the speed of vehicles through there, particularly given that it is still going to be quite a winding road through the woods. So more than happy to move it, Mr. Chairman.
I agree with you with your comments. There's a variety of businesses there, and there's a lot of pedestrians too, because there's a lot of pedestrians walking from Jubilee Park caravan site through to the Kinema and beyond the tea house, the Dower House, other businesses in that vicinity. So I think that should be supported. I've known the area for many years, and it is a very narrow carriageway, and indeed the lighting at night on the darker nights is not brilliant as well. So I think that's to be supported as well. Quite happy to second. Councillor Reid.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Like you've described, I often have used that as a footway through from Woodhall Country Park as well. And indeed, it is precarious, to be fair, for pedestrians. And even in the absence this year of the 1940s celebration, which is sort of the real hiatus situation, I'd still like to support the scheme, and I think it's very valid. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further speakers. I'll therefore put it to the vote as printed that we overrule the objections proposed by Councillor Ashton, seconded by myself. All in favour, please show. Unanimous. Thank you very much. So I'll therefore move you on to item 4.3, which is Waddington High Street, Caps Lane and Bar Lane. Jan, please.
Thank you. So we've been asked by the local member to assess the junctions of High Street with Caps Lane and Bar Lane. Next slide, please. This staggered crossroads lies within the old village off the A607. Next slide, please. The local member had received complaints regarding parking on these junctions, obstructing visibility for vehicles using the junctions and also for the passage of larger vehicles. We therefore propose the no waiting at any time restrictions as shown at Appendix B. We've had two objections from nearby residents. One objecting on the basis that some residents don't have off-street parking and this will be detrimental to them, and concerns about where the displaced parking will go, and another that the parking here currently slows the speed of traffic flows through here and also discourages traffic from using the shortcut via Bar Lane and Caps Lane between the A607 and Station Road. In our officer's opinion, parking close to these junctions does obstruct visibility for vehicles and pedestrians and for the passage of larger vehicles, and it is the proposals will impact minimally on the provision of on-street parking in the area. There is space elsewhere for that nearby, so it's recommended that the objections are overruled so the scheme can be introduced. Thank you.
Over the years, my family have come from Waddington, lived in that area, and very recently I've attended a funeral at Waddington Church where there were quite a few hundred people present. This meant that there was quite a few vehicles and a lot of parking, and the centre of Waddington was interesting for access and egress. And certainly there's quite a few very sharp, tight corners here and there, and this is a classic example of one of those corners. So I fully support the recommendations put forward by officers. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Skinner?
Thank you, Chairman. Quite frankly, the scheme is well worth doing. It's a tight area through there. Quite frankly, people shouldn't be parking on junctions like that. So I'm quite happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Overton?
Yeah, I would like to support those comments, but can I just ask how much of an extension are those lines from what is legally not allowed anyway? Are we finding that because people are not, people are tending to park too close to the junction, that's why we're having to put lines in? Is that what it is? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. Yeah, the Highway Code states you shouldn't park within 10 metres of a junction, but generally that's not enforced. The advantage of having the double yellow lines means that LCC's enforcement team can therefore deliver a penalty charge notice.
Thank you.
Okay, no further speakers. Proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Skinner. All in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. So I will therefore move you on to 4.4, which is Lincoln, Sinsel Bank and Charles Street. Proposed one-way orders, etc. Jan, please.
Thank you. So apologies first for the slightly out of sync appendices in the papers. That's my fault. The PowerPoint should be correct. Thank you. So next slide, please. So we're back in the Sinsel Bank area of Lincoln, where we fairly recently introduced a permit parking scheme. The area is currently the focus of a variety of enhancement works, including an aspiration to introduce a green corridor along Sinsel Bank itself, and the scheme has been developed to provide cycle facilities, improve footways, crossing points, and improvements to the environment. Next slide, please. This is a visual of what we're hoping this route will look like, showing there the dedicated contraflow cycle lane. So the contraflow cycle lane northbound requires a traffic regulation order, and the reduction in carriageway width available means that we will have to introduce a corresponding one-way southbound order for general traffic. Next slide, please. These are shown in yellow and red on the Appendix C. Engagement with the community also alerted us to concerns about the area being used as a rat run, particularly that between the High Street and Pelham Bridge via Portland Street and Charles Street. So the proposals also include, as shown in the inset, a proposed one-way southbound on Charles Street. Next slide, please. So Appendix D, and next slide, please. And Appendix E show proposed minor changes to the waiting restrictions to support this scheme, particularly around the build-outs, but the net gain, there is a net gain in on-street parking as a result of these proposals. So all businesses and residents in the area have been consulted on these proposals, and we've received 28 objections. Next slide, please. There's a great deal of concern about the imposition of an additional one-way alongside all the existing established one-ways shown in blue. This effectively isolates the northern section of Sinsel Bank area. Those residents will only be able to access their premises via High Street and Portland Street. And once committed to the southern area, they can't get back. This has a knock-on effect also on all residents in the area and their ability to navigate through it and access the surrounding road network. Next slide, please. There are also concerns about the proposed one-way on Charles Street. The belief is that an extended rat run will develop as a result into St Andrews Street and Ripon Street, both two-way flow and high levels of on-street parking, which will cause further inconvenience to residents in these areas. And basically that these two elements of the scheme will concentrate traffic at a reduced number of junctions, reducing in further inconvenience and congestion for residents. Next slide, please. So Appendix H shows some mitigation proposals in recognition of the impact on residents here, but also trying to retain the integrity of the original scheme on Sinsel Bank. It's recommended that the committee approves the proposed contraflow cycle lane and corresponding one-way orders on Sinsel Bank itself, but that it approves a further consultation for changes to the one-way and cross street to make it northbound as shown on this plan, and therefore to reinstate vehicular links between the areas of Sinsel Bank. And finally, in recognition of the concerns about Charles Street, the recommendation is that this element of the proposal is removed from the scheme. That concludes my summary. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's a fairly good selection of maps indicating the various sections of this part of Lincoln. I think we've had a walking tour of this area a little while back, so I think people are quite familiar with this area, and certainly the proposed view in Appendix B looks very nice with the trees and the cycle track, etc. alongside. So it does uplift the area more than somewhat. I'm quite happy with the report as printed, so I'm quite happy to propose it, and I don't see anybody wishing to speak at this moment, but I will look for a seconder or somebody to put any comments in. Councillor Skinner, please.
I believe, like you said, Chairman, there's been a lot of work in this area, and I'm quite happy to support and second it. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to support the proposals that we're going with. Clearly, this is one of those areas which was, when it was designed in an area before cars, and is now having to accommodate a substantial number of vehicles needing to park. Not just that, a significant number of vehicles needing to move around that city, that part of the city at a critical time. So the fact that we are working through this in an incremental way, I think, makes an awful lot of sense, and I'm pleased that on some of those items that there is the opportunity for further consultation before anything firm happens. So very happy to support.
Thank you. Well, I don't see anything for you to come back there on, Jan, and I don't see anybody else wishing to speak. So all in favour of the scheme as proposed, the recommendation, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. So that completes the traffic sections, and we will now move over to the County Council planning applications, and 5.1 is the North Highcombe Relief Road. Now, I believe Natalie's going to introduce this, so the floor's yours, Natalie.
Thank you very much. Could we start on slide 3, please? Thank you. So this application is made by Lincolnshire County Council Highways for the construction of the North Highcombe Relief Road between the A46 Highcombe roundabout and the A15 Sleaford Road roundabout at the end of the Lincoln Eastern Bypass. It includes junctions at South Highcombe Road, Brant Road and Grantham Road, associated structures, earthworks and drainage, street lighting, traffic signals, utility diversions and installations, a pipeline diversion, temporary materials processing, landscaping and highways features, including a non-motorised user route. It's proposed to be 8 kilometres long of dual all-purpose carriageway with a 70-mile-per-hour speed limit. Overall, the application site is approximately 200 hectares in size. In total, we've received 17 representations from 13 local interested parties, 1 in support and 16 raising objections or queries. The applicant has stated that the aims of the proposed development are to provide an additional east-west route for local and strategic traffic, to reduce congestion in and around North Highcombe, Lincoln and the surrounding villages, and to assist in the sustainable growth of Lincoln and Lincolnshire. The North Highcombe Relief Road is identified as a top priority in the Lincoln Transport Strategy. I'm aware that members of the committee undertook a site visit last week and so have had an opportunity to view the application site area. Could we move 3 slides forward, please? I'm going to start the presentation where you finished your site visit at the A46 Highcombe roundabout. In this location, the existing 4-arm roundabout is proposed to be significantly enlarged to incorporate a 5th arm for the scheme. From the south, it's proposed to create a 4-lane approach to the roundabout, 2 lanes of which are proposed to exit the roundabout onto the A46 travelling west. Traffic lights and toucan crossings are proposed on the roundabout to assist in the flow of traffic and to enable pedestrians and cyclists to cross. Adjacent to the A46, a site compound is proposed, which will be linked to the proposed development site via an internal haul road. The route then travels in a south-easterly arc to the junction with South Highcombe Road. A non-motorised user path is proposed to run along the northern side of the Relief Road at this point. Could we move 2 slides forward, please? At the junction with South Highcombe Road, a new roundabout is proposed. The non-motorised user path is proposed to cross South Highcombe Road using a toucan crossing. That's it, lovely, thank you. And just before the South Highcombe roundabout, it's proposed to plant extra heavy standard trees to the north and south of the road to provide a hop-over feature for bats. If we could move 2 slides forward, please. So moving then to Wath Lane, a bat bridge is proposed, planted with a double hedgerow and hedging and vegetated embankments to the north and south of the road to provide a route for bats over the Relief Road. In order to maintain access along Wath Road, which is currently a private road and bridleway, a bridge is designed to accommodate a tractor and trailer is proposed to cross the Relief Road. If we could move 4 slides forward, please. So from Wath Lane, the road travels east towards the River Witham. To the north of the Relief Road, a noise mitigation bund and barrier are proposed to protect South Highcombe. To the south of the Relief Road is the existing Environment Agency flood bund and flood storage area. A bridge is proposed to cross the River Witham, spanning approximately 134 metres and would be 28 metres wide. It's proposed to be a 3-span structure with the largest span over the river itself. It's proposed to accommodate both the Relief Road and the non-motorised user route on this bridge. Meadow Lane, which lies to the north of the Relief Road, is a public right-of-way, and it's proposed to extend this to create a circular recreation route. The bridge over the river is proposed to be located to the north of the existing sluice gates. If we could move 3 slides forward, please. Shortly after the bridge over the River Witham, the route meets Branch Road and a new roundabout is proposed. The non-motorised user route is proposed to cross Branch Road using a toucan crossing to the north of the Relief Road. The route of the road would cross Somerton Gate Lane, and in order to retain access to Somerton Gate Lane, a new road is proposed to be constructed parallel to the Relief Road and also to the south of the Relief Road to connect Somerton Gate Lane with Brant Road. Access to the existing farm, which lies to the north of Somerton Gate Lane, would be retained through the construction of a track. To the northeast of the Brant Road roundabout, a bat culvert is proposed. This is proposed to be a reinforced concrete structure with hedgerows and trees either side to guide bats under the road. If we could move 4 slides forward, please. The route then continues east to Station Road, and I believe that you called in there on your site visit. It's proposed to realign Station Road so that it travels over the proposed Relief Road. In order to facilitate the route of the Relief Road at this point, 6 dwellings are proposed to be demolished. A 7th has already been demolished. All of these properties are in County Council ownership. Noise mitigation bunds and barriers are proposed to either side of the Relief Road at this point to protect local residents. And the non-motorised user route is proposed to cross from the north side of the Relief Road to the south of it in this location using the proposed Station Road Bridge. From here, the route travels through the Lincoln Cliff in a cutting. Along this part of the route, the Viking Way long-distance footpath is located, and it's proposed to realign this footpath. A link between the footpath and Station Road to the north of the Relief Road is proposed, And from the south, the Viking Way is proposed to be realigned and cross the road using a proposed new footbridge, which is also proposed to serve the non-motorised users. If we could move 3 slides forward, please. Shortly after the Viking Way footbridge, the Relief Road would meet Grantham Road, where a new roundabout is proposed. At this point, the non-motorised user route would move back to the north of the Relief Road. Between Grantham Road roundabout and the A15 roundabout, 2 noise mitigation barriers are proposed. One to provide mitigation to Grange Farm, and the other to provide mitigation to the future occupants of the land to the north of the Relief Road, which has got outline planning permission for residential development and is also a housing allocation in the Central Lincolnshire local plan. Along this stretch of road, extra heavy standard trees are also proposed to be planted to provide a hop-over feature for bats. If we could move 3 slides forward, please. The existing Sleaford Road roundabout is proposed to have a 5th arm added. The exit onto the Lincoln Eastern Bypass is proposed to be widened to accommodate 2 lanes, which will then merge into 1 lane. Along the length of the route, various construction compounds are proposed, together with a material processing area, which is proposed to process limestone, which would be extracted through the development and reused within the construction. There are a large number of issues to be considered, as set out in the committee report, but I'll just focus on those really in relation to which objections have been received. So as I said before, the proposed development is a key piece of infrastructure identified in the Lincoln Transport Strategy, and the land is safeguarded in the Central Lincolnshire local plan. It's acknowledged in the local plan to be key to the delivery of the housing and employment growth required for the south of Lincoln. The route of the Relief Road has been consulted on over an extended period of time, going back to 2005-2006, and has been modified to have the least impact it can on existing homes and businesses and to avoid heritage assets where possible. In principle, the development is considered to be acceptable. With respect to traffic and transport and active travel, discussions have taken place with National Highways due to the connection with the A46, which forms part of the strategic road network. National Highways are satisfied with the proposals, subject to the conditions which are set out in the committee report. They don't object. Discussions have also taken place with Active Travel England, particularly with reference to the non-motorised user route, and they've also confirmed that they have no objections. During the course of considering the application, amendments have been made to the proposed arrangements for accessing the service area to the west of the A46 roundabout, following representations from one of the operators to overcome the concerns raised, and National Highways have confirmed that they are satisfied with those amendments. Overall, the proposed development would have a beneficial impact on the highway network and will provide a non-motorised user route along the whole length of the road. Turning to flood risk and the water environment, as members may have seen during the site visit, the application site runs alongside the boundary of a flood storage area and, as I've said, would cross the river with them. A flood risk assessment has been undertaken and subject to the detailed drainage strategy being agreed, it's considered that the proposed development wouldn't increase flood risk and or result in adverse impacts to the water environment. Excuse me. In relation to heritage assets, the site is in proximity to a number of designated and non-designated heritage assets and includes the demolition of the non-designated heritage asset number 46 Station Road. The route has been designed to minimise any adverse impacts on heritage assets as far as possible, and a programme of archaeological investigation has been submitted, and the applicant has been working closely with the Historic Places team. Whilst there would be harm to some designated and non-designated heritage assets, this is less than substantial harm and is outweighed by the significant public benefits the proposal would bring. Conditions are also recommended to minimise any harm. Turning to nature conservation, the proposed development would inevitably lead to the loss of trees, hedgerows and habitats along the proposed route. However, it is proposed to deliver a biodiversity net gain of approximately 42% for habitat units, 17% for linear habitats and hedgerow units, and 18% for river units. So this far exceeds the 10% biodiversity net gain which might be expected. As you've heard, innovative solutions such as a bat bridge and bat culvert are proposed, and along the route, features such as insect mounds are also proposed. So whilst the development would result in the loss of some trees, hedgerows and habitats, the significant net gain is considered to outweigh the harm caused. A development such as this will inevitably lead to some landscape and visual impacts. However, the proposals include significant landscape planting to mitigate these. The site runs through the Lincoln Cliff area of great landscape value and would have an adverse impact on this. However, the route is designed to be in a cutting through the Lincoln Cliff, and tree and woodland planting are proposed to lessen the impacts overall over time. Subject to the implementation of the proposed landscaping scheme, it's considered that the proposed development is acceptable in this regard. A number of the objections received to the application have raised concerns regarding noise at both operational and construction stages of the development. A range of measures are proposed to deal with noise at both stages, including limiting the hours of construction, noise bunds, noise barriers, and low noise road surfacing. Discussions have taken place with North Kesteven District Council's Environmental Health Officer regarding noise, and amendments were made to the application as a result of this to include acoustic barriers to address the Environmental Health Officer's requirements. There would be significant residual adverse impacts relating to noise at a number of dwellings, but there would also be significant beneficial impacts at a number of dwellings, and most of these impacts are as a result of redirected traffic. In light of the significant public benefits of the proposal, it's considered that the harm caused is outweighed by the benefits. As members of the committee will have seen during the site visit, the proposed development would affect a number of public rights of way, including 3 that are proposed to be permanently closed. However, overall, the proposed development would enhance the public right of way network through improved connections and additional routes. So overall, the proposed development would result in significant social and economic benefits as a result in the reduction of congestion, better east-west connections, and facilitating new housing and employment growth. There would be significant environmental benefits through the delivery of biodiversity net gain. It is acknowledged that there would be residual adverse impacts, but these are considered to be outweighed by the substantial benefits. I therefore recommend to the committee that planning permission is granted subject to the conditions set out in the committee report as amended by the committee update with respect to condition 18 regarding the SUDS management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, and well presented, because there's a lot of information there. Now, Rules of Engagement Committee. We had a site visit last week, and so therefore, with regard to committee members, all committee members can speak to the application, can question items, but only those on the site visit can vote. So I think we'll make that one clear. I do believe we have a speaker, and that is Sam Edwards. If you'd like to come down, we can afford you 3 minutes, and then potentially you might get a question or two. Depends. I think Natalie's done very well presenting that, and she's given us a lot of information. The floor is yours when you're ready.
Right, good morning, and thank you for letting me speak today to introduce what I believe is, on the whole, a well-supported project which will complete the ring road orbital around Lincoln. The North Hike and Relief Road has been a long-term aspiration of the County Council for decades. The principle of a relief road has been developed over many years and included several strategy and policy plans covering the Lincoln area. A preferred route for the scheme, known then as the Lincoln Southern Bypass, was adopted as far back as 2006. As potential funding streams were identified, a route was included in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan in 2017, as well as its 2023 replacement. The Council was successful in bidding for funding from the DFT, that's the Department for Transport's large local major programme, with 110 million allocation secured in late 2020. Since then, the Council has been actively preparing the delivery of this critical piece of infrastructure. Significant investment has been made in the production of a detailed engineering design by specialist consultants and assessed by LCC Highways. Extensive ground investigations, ecological surveys and archaeological evaluations have been required to collate and produce the necessary highway designs and mitigation measures. Further, the Council has engaged with key stakeholders and undertaken extensive public engagement with 3 successive events, with each being held at 3 different locations. The proposal put forward today for an 8-kilometre, 70-mile-an-hour all-purpose carriageway incorporates, wherever possible, all reasonable requests and suggestions identified through this engagement. Securing the granted planning consent today is essential to the delivery of this project, which provides significant economic, environmental, social and transport benefits. The North Highcombe Relief Road provides additional route choice, improves east-west connectivity and reduces congestion on radial routes into Lincoln. It will improve the performance and reliability of the local transport network, which will improve the efficiency of businesses and promote sustainable economic growth. The scheme increases the effective business catchment area, increases labour supply and supports greater investment and skills development. It is a vital part of Lincolnshire's plans to support the growth of this priority economic sector, improve the efficiency of the strategic road network, and in turn, the links to the major national and international gateways and the coast. It must be recognised that the scheme unlocks the southwest quadrant sustainable urban extension. The whole of this development incorporates approximately 2,000 dwellings, 5 hectares of employment land, along with retail and community uses. It is dependent upon the delivery of this scheme to unlock that. The southeast quadrant sustainable urban extension already unlocked by the completion of the Lincoln Eastern bypass. However, the full extent of that SUE is only unlocked by the completion of this project. Finally, the North Highcombe Relief Road supports the delivery of the Lincoln Integrated Transport Strategy and ensures that Lincoln's transport infrastructure meets the needs of the existing and future users, reduces congestion on key routes, maximises accessibility to central Lincoln and promotes sustainable economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, I will welcome questions from committee. As I see it, this scheme, the entire project is coming forward as a dual carriageway scheme. And that is very, very important, I think, for Lincoln. Recently, in the last few months, I've been involved in traffic issues on the Western bypass, where Doddington Road, Skellingthorpe Road areas, the carriageways have been closed off. And I've been caught up in people rat running through the bottom end of South Highcombe and trying to get through to Waddington and beyond. So this is to be supported, I think, and is a positive way forwards. So if you can confirm to me that the funding is hopefully there for dual carriageway and some sort of a timescale attached to it.
Sure. I'll just go back a step. So in early mid-2019, we brought the scheme to the executive of this council to seek permission to put the funding bid in. That had 3 options attached to it for this scheme. That was a single carriageway road, a single future-proof, similar to what we constructed for the Eastern Bypass, or a dual carriageway. It was very clear that the best benefit-to-cost ratio was the dual carriageway scheme, and that was what was agreed to be submitted. That is the scheme that was submitted. That is the scheme that the money, the 110 million from the DFT, has been awarded based upon. So there is no, because it's all based around a business case model, and we still have the final business case to go through towards the end of next year, but you can't suddenly change the game. You can't change what you're putting forward because it goes through the process. So as far as the business case process, if you were to suddenly change it to a single or a single future-proof, you go back to the start and you start again, and that's not what the money's been allocated on. Clearly, what I can't comment on is what happens in the political domain nationally and things like this. But as far as the process we're going through, I can be very clear. I have heard no noises. There's been no discussion with DFT or funders or any party about reducing the scale of this, from a dual carriageway to a single. As far as timing of delivery, which I think was a question, it's subject to a granting today. The next process will be the legal orders, which we will be looking to submit late summer, it's probably August, September. That's the compulsory purchase order and the side roads order. Again, subject to that going through in the way that we expect, which incorporates a public inquiry, probably spring next year. And then we'll get into the final business case with the DFT and then some advanced works towards the end of 2025. So we're looking, if all things are equal, everything goes through as we hope it does as the applicant, to be on site building it towards the end of 2025, but the real big earthworks that that Natalie's gone through will be starting in sort of what we call the earthwork season towards the start of 2026.
So the follow-on question from there is, the scheme we have in front of us with the planning application today is a dual carriageway scheme. If there was an issue at some stage in the future, could a single carriageway scheme be built utilising any permission that might or might not be granted today?
No. simply, we would have to come back to this committee and go through a number of processes to bring a different scheme forward. We can't simply adjust to what we've got.
Thank you. So that confirms that we are looking towards a dual carriageway today. Councillor Ashley Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I was rather amazed at the amount that seems to be being spent from the budget on bats, but I mean, I'm sure that's very commendable. Has any consideration been given to road surfacing near built-up areas? There seems to be 2 or 3 areas where the road skirts the corner of a settlement, and I imagine some of the objections will be on the basis of noise, continuous noise. And there are some excellent schemes around. I was sort of party to a demonstration of one down in Somerset, where it sounded like the car switched off. It literally came along, there was a huge gap of absolute silence, and then it came back on. And these were experimental road surfaces by Foster Yeomans in that area. But has any consideration been given to that rather than, I know earth buns and fencing and all sorts do work, but that worked wonderfully. If you could perhaps comment on that. Thank you.
So included in the application is a variety of noise attenuation measures. So effectively we've got low noise surfacing, which is what is established within that. So we are incorporating that. That is between the junctions. So that's not around the roundabouts. That's between, because that's where the noise gets up to a certain level where we need to attenuate. Because you generally get lower traffic noise on carriageways around roundabouts. Also, you want a more robust product around the roundabouts because you've got lots of screwing as the cars go around that you don't get on the straights. So we've got a selection of final surfacing that does have low noise surfacing, and that brings down effectively the base level of noise from the road, from the environment. Of course, we do still have isolated areas where there's either properties close to it or businesses or increased levels of noise, and that's where we've targeted attenuation fencing and bunding and the lights, and in some areas a mixture of the two to mitigate that below the level that's required.
Okay, I don't see any further speakers, so if you'd like to retire, Sam. Hang on, Councillor Mrs Overton.
My turn, thank you. Questions. The issue about South Highcombe, they've complained a lot about the noise. Is that one of the areas? Can you talk about what you've done about protecting South Highcombe? I think you have. I came to the display and all that, but if you could just summarise that for us, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the critical areas between South Highcombe roundabout and Wath Lane, that sort of area. So there's low noise surfacing as you exit the roundabout because you don't need it around it because the noise is lower. And on the north side of that, we've got a selection of planting, I think there's some bunding and some fencing around there to attenuate, and that's all included in the application.
Thank you. And a supplementary, if I might, Chairman. When I was at the exhibition and there was a discussion, there were some villages that will actually have an increase in traffic when I came to the exhibition. I don't know if that's still the case. Thank you.
So there was some, I'm not sure confusion is the right word, but the way the media that we presented, the plans that we presented, we showed a percentage in increase or decrease in traffic in the RAG rating that we showed. So for example, there was a road going out towards Eagle that showed somewhere between 50 and 100% increase. However, that's 100, say 70% increase of a very, very small number. That could be 6 cars an hour. So actually the impact is very low. Whereas what we were showing is a 10 to 25% decrease on Newark Road, for example, which is a massive decrease because of the scale of what it is. So the RAG rating got a number of sort of residents, and we spent a long time talking about that was a percentage difference, not a, if it's red, the road falls apart, people can't get there, it's all congested. That's not what it's showing. It was a percentage change. So the impact is not in any way great feared that some parties that came forward.
Thank you. I think the percentage is important for the small lanes. I mean, they're small, and that's why the number of traffic is more important to them. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody wishing any further questions, so thank you, Sam. Now, I'll go back to Natalie now and say, now you've heard a presentation from the applicant as a planning officer, is there anything you'd like to add at this stage before I open to committee.
And if I could just offer some reassurance to Councillor Ashley Morris, recommended condition 24 is in relation to noise and noise attenuation measures, and actually includes the requirement for the installation of the low noise road surfacing.
Okay, so we're now going to open it to committee then, and obviously we had the site visit the other day, and one of the very noticeable items of the bypass is the size of the scarp and the escarpment, and obviously there is going to have to be some sizable construction attached to that part of the development. I'm fortunate I've been on the planning committee now many years, and I do remember the county council purchasing the properties on Station Road, but obviously further up there is going to be a fairly large cutting. Where will all of that limestone go to? And I presume there's going to be some sort of attenuation with regard to dust. Will it be carved out? Will it be blown out? Or what's the construction phase thought of to be with regard to cutting a hole in the hill?
So in terms of the limestone to be extracted, the application actually includes a materials processing area. So a great percentage of that limestone will actually be processed to be used in the construction of the road itself. In terms of attenuation measures and so on, a construction environmental management plan is proposed that will establish exactly how that will be undertaken, the measures that will be put in place. That includes a dust management plan and so on. So those measures will all be captured within that to make sure that there aren't adverse impacts as a result of it. But the idea was to reuse as much of the material as possible to minimise the number of materials that have to be imported to the site.
Thank you, that's very reassuring. Open to committee, please. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a large number, so if you'd rather I only ask some and then let somebody else come in, I shall defer to you on that.
You've got a large number of questions. I'll pause you there. Councillor Carrington, you've got a large number of questions or a small number of questions? Can I go to Councillor Carrington first and then come back to you?
Forgive me, Chairman, I thought we'd moved into the formal debate rather than still asking questions. I wasn't going to ask questions at all.
We are now in the debate stage. We are now in the debate stage of the the application. Councillor Smith has alluded to the fact he has a large number of questions or statements he's going to move to. If you have a small number, perhaps if you'd like to tackle those, and then hopefully we won't cover the same ground twice.
I'll follow the chairman's. I'll follow the chairman's direction. What I was going to say was, this is an absolutely enormously complex project. And I think when we did our site visit the other day, it really bore down on us the scale of it, particularly when we stood on the edge of the escarpment, the level of engineering that's required. I think we take modern highways very much for granted. 1 minute there's a field, 1 minute there's some construction, then the next minute we have a wonderful new road. Actually getting those new roads is an enormous task. And I think the first thing we should do as a committee is pay tribute to our highways officers and indeed our planning officers in what is a ferociously complex process, and bringing it just to this stage is an absolutely enormous achievement. And can I just pick up on what you said, Chairman, about the importance of the dual carriageway? I was actually the North Kesteven representative on a work group when this road was first being thought about, where a number of people were brought together. And one of the things, it must be 10 years ago now, one of the things that came out of that so strongly was the importance of getting a dual carriageway for this section of highway. And I'm delighted to see that. I'd also thank officers and indeed our contractors for the various amendments that have been made going through that. I'm dual-hatted at North Kesteven. I was particularly pleased to hear that those concerns about noise have been, in the various ways that we've heard this morning, acted upon and will be looked at very carefully. Chairman, I'm not going to dwell on the economic benefits because we know what those are. They are enormously important, but I think it does underline the fact that we have in the central Lincolnshire local plan, to which this council is a party, an absolute commitment that where we have development, we do have infrastructure. There's an infrastructure guarantee written into that. And I think this is an enormously important example of the fact that we are, in local government, delivering the infrastructure which not only serves existing development, but facilitates new development and increased prosperity through economic development for the residents we serve. Chairman, there's an aspect of this which we haven't really had covered this morning, which I do want to touch on, and that is the impact a little away from the route. We know about the national impact, we know about the economic area impact, but I'm thinking particularly of villages near the route. In my division, I can cite Harmston and Colby. Other members may well, all around the ring road, in fact, all around Lincoln, have other examples they could cite. Those two villages, for example, at the moment, are carrying a great deal of rat run traffic. An awful lot of that is heavy goods vehicle traffic, which frankly is going on historic byways that are simply ill-suited to that kind of use. So this road appearing, able as it is, and we've seen this from the computer projections of the impact of this scheme, will suck an awful lot of that traffic out of villages where it should not be and enable it to go about its business to the benefit of all without being to the detriment of people in those communities. I'm very pleased to hear about the detail and reading the report about the detail of construction phase mitigation. I think that is absolutely essential. The CMP on this one will be a work probably about the length of War and Peace, construction management plan. But a vital document, and I think those safeguards being put in place in the interests of residents near the construction site is immensely important, and hopefully will give reassurance to those residents, many of whom will be, I hope, looking forward to the new road, but will also be concerned about the impact during its construction. So, Chairman, I'm absolutely delighted to see this. It has been a project an awfully long time in the emergence. I think the first mention of a ring road around Lincoln was actually back in the 1930s. Here we are in 2024 looking at the final stage of that, hopefully slotting into place in the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm very pleased to see this. I do support it, and I'm happy to propose as the scheme appears in our report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for your comments. I don't think there's anything for Natalie to come back to there, but thank you for your comments. And okay, it might have taken Lincoln 100 years to get a ring road, but let's hope it's built within 100 years. So, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your indulgence. Since there will be a permanent loss of 43.6 hectares of best most versatile agricultural land, do officers have an understanding of what the total loss would be, including all other major projects across the county, such as the other nationally significant infrastructure projects and other major road schemes? This, of course, does not include the loss that will take place of 110.1 hectares of Grade 3B agricultural land for the purpose of this scheme. What is the risk around a judgment on statutory noise attenuation being challenged if the application proceeds as it's currently printed? With respect to the FRA, which for those online is flood risk assessment, are we confident the calculation of 1 in 100 years event plus 40% with respect to climate change is significant, especially when we look at the weather that we've recently had this year in terms of rainfall? I note in the report it seeks to address the issues of several farmers have raised around the respect of their operations and with respect to the land that is in their either possession or that they are a tenant farmer. How confident are officers that these challenges will be resolved? Because if the development were to make these parcels of land economically unviable, Chairman, to farm, the real harm in respect of best most versatile agricultural land could well be larger than calculated, with the obvious food security implications. With respect to point 91, Chairman, which is around a additional compensatory flood storage, what would be the cost and other practical implications for such storage if one was implemented? It's not proposed to be in the current report, Chairman. And finally, with respect to point 91, with respect to the modelling that's been undertaken, if there is a reservoir failure, did the model include if this were to take place during a period of heavy rain, and if so, what were the implications, and could officers provide more information on the risks of not providing further flood mitigation in this respect? Thank you, Chairman.
Well, there isn't something for you to answer, Natalie. So in your own time, and it's not a rush. You have 100 years, in fact.
I'll try my best. I'm afraid I don't have a figure for the total county for best and most versatile agricultural land. What I can tell you is that we were in quite lengthy discussions with Natural England in relation to the loss of the land, and they concluded that they didn't raise an objection to the application. In relation to noise and statutory, I think you said statutory noise issues, the report does conclude that there would be some adverse impacts in relation to noise, but it does say that these would not constitute a statutory, that they wouldn't tip over into the statutory noise nuisance. We have, again, as I said, been in discussions with the Environmental Health Officer at North Kesteven, quite lengthy discussions with them to make sure that everything was in place. And as I referred to before, Condition 24, recommended Condition 24, does set out the requirement for the implementation of all of the noise mitigation measures, not only the implementation but also ongoing maintenance for the life of the road. So I hope that offers some comfort in relation to that. In relation to the flood risk assessment, yes, I'm content with following discussions with, again, Environment Agency and colleagues in highways as well, that the flood risk assessment is appropriate and has applied the appropriate parameters and assessed the correct features and flood risks. In relation to impacts on local farmers, part of the scheme includes a number of new access tracks to the north and south of the proposed relief road to ensure that access is still available to farmers to parcels of land. We've worked to make sure that those can be secured. Then there are instances where a farmer may have to travel further than they currently do, but access is still available, and those measures are all proposed as part of the scheme. I'm afraid I didn't quite understand the question you were asking about flood storage. This application itself doesn't include flood storage. It just runs adjacent to an area where there is flood storage, Environmental Agency flood storage, and we have been engaged with them in relation to it, and no concerns have been raised. But if there's something that I've missed in relation to that.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the question I'm asking is, when you looked at the potential of adding additional storage, what stopped us doing that? Was it cost? Was it a practical implication of what would impact the road and where the road would be placed? It's more around what sort of consideration we gave to adding that in that process. I know it's not there in the proposal as it stands, but it's what stopped that. And are we happy that the existing storage will be sufficient?
Okay, I haven't been involved in any discussions in relation to whether any additional storage could be involved. We've assessed the application as proposed, and as proposed, with the mitigation that's included within it, then flood risk wouldn't be increased, and so there wasn't a need as a result of the development to increase flood storage. The route, I understand, before the application was submitted, was moved slightly further north from the flood storage bund than had previously been consulted on at an earlier stage, to make sure that flood storage area was retained and protected. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So I'm very pleased that a local member from NKDC has proposed the application, being a Lincoln Fringe member. I am a Lincoln Fringe member slightly further north, but I will be honest and say that at some stage in the future I expect to use this road, and I expect to use it extensively. I'm going to second the application as it stands, because I think that it will give a whole new meaning to this edge of town. I think, Councillor Carrington, you've touched on the betterment for villages such as Armston and such as Auburn and such places as that, but I think there's an awful lot more villages along that current rat run that will enjoy a whole new benefit to life. So there's going to be a really big uplift to a lot of those people in society. So I think it's a very, very positive scheme. I've got a couple more speakers now. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful for you seconded it. It just saved me the necessary obligation to do that. But I'd have been very happy to have done so. Councillor Carrington made most of the points that can be covered on this incredibly eloquently. But for me, it is clearly a huge opportunity that needs to be seized, not just as we've heard for the benefit of Lincoln and the surrounding villages immediate in this neighbourhood, but to the wider Lincolnshire county. Clearly, there is a huge, anyone that's tried to get round Lincoln at a particularly busy time, it's very much apparent that our existing highway network is struggling and is challenged. And I really look forward to this coming forward. I hope that in future there's an opportunity to get another look at the existing section of the Lincoln bypass between Ragby Road and the A15 and the A46. I can imagine those roundabouts becoming somewhat challenged as another wave of traffic comes from an opposite direction. But appreciating the application that we've got in front of us, it was very useful to go on that site visit and understand the sight lines and the visuals and the scale of the challenge that's going to come through. What I think is very much apparent is that there is really only one route that this road could possibly go. If you take the two roundabouts as the starting point, the need to avoid, particularly an RAF base and the village of Waddington, that gives you literally one route to go. So it's not like there's other hypothetical alternatives that's coming with this. And as I'm sure with other colleagues, anyone trying to get across from where I come from in Lincolnshire, across that southern side of Lincoln, over to Witham Third Drainage Board, Witham Humber Drainage Board, which occasionally I have the need to do, the difficulty to thread your way around some of those roads is something of a challenge. So very, very happy to support it. And I certainly hope, just echoing the thoughts of Councillor Ashley Morris, I hope the backs and the back watchers are really pleased with the amount of effort and, I'd hasten to say, public money that's been spent looking after their interests.
I don't think there's anything there for you, Natalie. I think the point you've touched on with the volume of traffic on the A46 section, the A15 section, Netland Road, Ragby Road, and going down towards the Witham, I think that will even out if once the new section of bypass is built. If you are travelling, as an example, from Washington or Cherry Willingham, I would have thought there's a high probability that you'd want to travel along a dual carriageway all the way around to the Bentley, rather than risk getting caught up in the northern side, which is potentially traffic coming up from Newark and heading towards the ports. So I think that it's an equidistant either side, and I think the traffic flow will even out at that stage. Councillor Mrs Overton.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to support comments about the volume of work and the cleverness of it, actually, engineering-wise, to create this structure. There are some villages being pointed out, like Colby, Harmston, Auburn, who will gain terrifically and feel significantly and are desperate for it to get on with it. And that's really important. There are other villages further down that will see an increase in traffic, and they're not so keen, as you can imagine. But I hope that there will be recognition in our own highways, really, when we get round to it, that if there is an impact off-site of this development, that our highways does have resources, that they would be able to use the normal methods to try and mitigate adverse impacts. The question I wanted to raise, which I think you've probably thought of, but I must admit you've got a good number of really solid conditions here, was about the mitigation for climate change. Obviously, there is a carbon footprint here, and we do normally work quite hard. We have a prediction, we have an objective, rather, to be net zero in Lincolnshire, County Council, certainly by 2050, and the District Council by 2030. So I'm just looking for the mitigation on the climate impact. Thank you.
I think if I point you to condition 3 in terms of the construction environmental management plan designed to mitigate impacts during the construction process, I think that will address some of the potential impacts in relation to climate change. The environmental statement did consider impacts on climate change, and I think throughout the proposals, those have been taken into account. I can see that there's not one single condition that necessarily refers to that, but I think that the conditions requiring the implementation of the various strategies over the course of the development collectively work to make sure that climate change impacts are addressed.
On 15, you've got, it's actually called climate there, condition 15, but I can't see where it says, that there will be mitigation. Like, I do see where you've put extra trees and all of those things. I do see that in, but sometimes there is an offsetting. So, a contribution to a woodland or something like that, just if there's any of that being considered, and not necessarily today, it might be in the longer plan, it might be in the general. Obviously, we're looking at things at quite a high level today, but presumably those conditions will allow for that kind of thing. Thank you.
So condition 14, I think it is, that relates to the biodiversity game plan. So I ran through the figures earlier in relation to the net gains in biodiversity, and that they are significantly above the expected 10%. I would also refer, just as you mentioned, trees. If I just run through these figures with you, they are in the committee report, but it's proposed to remove 68 trees, 73 tree groups and 6.1 kilometres of hedgerow, but it's proposed to plant 1,711 new trees, 17.74 hectares of woodland, that's woodland mix, 3.32 hectares of woodland edge mix, and 18.8 kilometres of hedgerows. So there is quite a significant uplift in terms of planting. That condition 14 has been put in so that the final details of that can be agreed. So I think that there is significant scope there for addressing the issues that you're referring to.
And similarly, I did allude to the limestone and the recycling of it. So the carbon footprint attached to that with recycling raw materials throughout the project is very much keeping the carbon footprint down to a very low level. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome this application. We've been waiting for a wee while for it. I hope it's not 100 years till it gets built. But I think, picking up Marianne's point, I think it's really important the mitigation that we're going to get in terms of new trees and new hedges and the rest of it. Put it simply, this will help people get in and out of Lincoln. It'll save a lot of people from sitting in the cars, not going anywhere, and I really welcome it.
Thank you for those comments. So I don't think we need any further comment there. Right, so I'll just remind the committee then, because I am going to put it to the vote. All those that were on the site visit can vote. So it's been proposed by Councillor Carrington, seconded by myself, that the report as printed is carried forwards. So I'll encourage you now to vote for if you wish to do that, if you're on the site visit. If you're on the site visit, you were, weren't you? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I'm just counting, just making sure. 8. Those against? Nobody on the site visit, and obviously abstentions. Those that weren't on the site visit, if you'd like to indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So that is clearly carried and clearly granted. So let's hope the officers can get moving along with the politicians and get the funding in place. And can we have it for a couple of weeks' time, please? No, we'll give you a couple of years to get it built. Thank you very much. So on the basis of that therefore deals with, I believe, the last item on the agenda. So thank you all for attending, and I wish you all a safe journey home.